You don't give up on the ones beside you. Because one day someone will remember. They told us it was a routine escort, a simple run, nothing more. But I've learned that in war, the word routine is a lie. My name is Henry Carter, Staff Sergeant, 761st Tank Battalion, the Black Panthers, the Army's first all-black armored unit. We were good, damn good, but in those days, being good didn't always matter. To some, we were still just men with the wrong skin, wearing the same uniform as everyone else but fighting for respect as much as survival. It was winter, 1944. The Battle of the Bulge was raging. Snow fell heavy in the Ardennes, turning the roads to ice and every breath into smoke. Our orders were to escort a supply convoy through a stretch of forest near the village of WWII. Ammunition, rations, fuel, lifelines for the men holding the line. They said it would take half a day. They said we'd link up with reinforcements by dusk, but we never saw dusk. Through the fog glass of my Sherman, I could see the white world stretching out in front of us. The convoy snaked along the frozen road, trucks groaning under the weight of supplies, engines coughing in the cold. My crew was sharp. Thomas Preacher Jenkins on the radio, a man who kept his Bible tucked in his jacket like it was armor. Eddie Wilson, loader, hot-headed but steady when it mattered. And Private First Class Marcus Lee, our gunner, barely 20 years old, with eyes that had already seen too much. We rolled forward slow, treads crunching over snow and ice. It was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no distant gunfire, just the low rumble of engines and the whine of the wind. I remember glancing at the men in the trucks behind us. Some looked calm, others jittery, staring into the tree line as though shadows themselves could kill. And maybe they could. The Ardennes was a place where the forest swallowed men whole. We were 2 hours in when the first sign came. A patch of road darker than the rest. Wilson spotted it first. "Sarge," he said, his voice tight, "that ain't just snow melt." He was right. It was oil, fresh, a trail leading off into the woods. I reported it on the radio, but the response from command was the same old dismissal. "Stay on mission, keep moving, don't deviate." They never listened to us unless we brought back bodies or medals, so we pressed on. The fog thickened, rolling in from the tree line until it felt like we were driving through smoke. Visibility dropped to nothing. I ordered the column to tighten up, every vehicle, nose to tail. The men got quiet. I could feel their nerves through the steel of my tank. Then, silence. I looked in my periscope. The trucks behind us, gone. Not destroyed, not burning, just gone. We stopped. Engines idling. I called back over the radio, nothing but static. Preacher tried different frequencies, tapping the set like he could will it back to life. Still nothing. The convoy we were supposed to protect had vanished, swallowed by the fog like the forest had simply reached out and taken them. That's when I knew. This wasn't routine, this was a trap. And before I take you deeper into that day, let me pause for a moment. If you're listening right now, I want you to subscribe to this channel. These stories aren't easy to tell, but they matter. They carry the weight of the men who never came home. Drop a comment if you've ever heard of the 761st, because too many still haven't. Now, let me tell you what happened when the woods closed in and the convoy we swore to protect simply disappeared. We sat in that fog, engines humming, nerves stretched thin. I ordered Wilson to climb out of the turret, take a look back. A moment later, his boots scraped on the hull. He leaned down, face pale. "They're gone, Sarge. Every damn truck, no tracks in the snow, nothing." That didn't make sense. Heavy trucks leave ruts. Chains bite into ice. They don't just disappear without a trace. But when I stepped out into the biting cold myself, I saw he was right. The road behind us was empty, smooth, untouched, like we had been alone all along. Preacher tapped the radio again. "Command, this is Panther 3. Do you read convoy missing? Repeat, convoy missing." Static answered. Always static. The others shifted uneasily. I could feel the fear creeping in. For a black man in the Army back then, fear wasn't something you were allowed to show. If you cracked, if you faltered, they'd use it against you. See, they're not ready. They're not fit to fight. I'd heard it whispered often enough. That weight made me stand taller, even when my knees wanted to buckle. "Mount up," I ordered. "We're pushing forward. We find them or we don't come back." We rolled on. The fog thickened until it felt alive, curling around the tank, sliding over the steel. The trees loomed close on either side of the road, black shapes against white mist. Every shadow looked like movement. Every sound was a threat, and then we heard it, faint at first. A metallic clatter like chains rattling, then voices, German. They weren't shouting, not yet, just talking. Too close. "Button up," I hissed, diving back into the turret. My heart hammered in my chest. We had no infantry screen, no eyes outside except our own. If it came to a fight, we'd be outnumbered and blind in this soup. Marcus, the gunner, swung the turret slowly, scanning the fog. "I can't see a damn thing, Sarge." His voice trembled despite himself. He was barely more than a kid. I wanted to tell him it'd be all right, but lies taste bitter in your mouth when you've been fed them your whole life. The voices faded. The clatter stopped, just silence again, pressing down heavy. And then out of nowhere a shot cracked, not at us but distant. A rifle, then another, then screaming. I ordered us forward, engine roaring. We rumbled ahead maybe 50 yards before we saw it, the first truck from our convoy. It was sitting sideways on the road, driver slumped dead over the wheel, windshield blown out. The cargo bed was empty. Wilson cursed under his breath. "Where the hell is everybody?" That's when the ground erupted. Mortars, explosions tore through the snow, blasting dirt and ice into the air. Shrapnel clanged against our hull. Germans had us zeroed. They were waiting. "Ambush!" I shouted, even though every man already knew. We fired back. Marcus let loose with the main gun, the blast echoing like thunder through the fog. Trees splintered. A machine gun opened up from the tree line, tracers cutting red lines across the white. Bullets pinged off the Sherman like hail. Through the chaos, I caught glimpses, our trucks riddled with holes, their cargo stripped. Men's bodies sprawled in the snow, frozen mid-movement. It wasn't just an ambush, it was slaughter. We fought like hell. Every round we fired was another second of life bought. But they had the numbers, they had the ground, and we were alone. Alone. That word stuck in my head, louder than the gunfire. That's what it meant to be us, the 761st. Fighting the enemy in front of us while fighting for respect from the army behind us. No reinforcements came. No support, just static on the radio. We weren't just fighting for survival, we were fighting not to be forgotten. The mortars eased for a moment, just long enough for us to breathe. Smoke and fog mixed into a choking haze, blinding us more than ever. Marcus wiped his eyes, swearing under his breath. "They're toying with us," he muttered, "like cats with a mouse." He wasn't wrong. Germans had the high ground, the cover, and the element of surprise. They could have finished us in the first volley, but they didn't. They wanted us to panic. I steadied myself against the hatch rim, my gloved hands slick with sweat despite the freezing air. My men looked to me, waiting for the call. That's the part they don't tell you when you wear the stripes. When you're the black sergeant in charge, you don't just carry the mission. You carry proof. Proof that you belong. Proof that your men don't get forgotten. Marcus, coaxial, short bursts. "Wilson, watch our rear. Preacher, get that damn radio talking. We're not dying alone out here." He worked the dials again, static spitting. "Panther 3, calling any station, any station. Do you read? We're under heavy fire, convoy destroyed. We need support now." Nothing. Just the endless hiss. And then, faint, so faint I thought I imagined it, came a voice. American. Tinny, distant, breaking through the static. "Panther 3, say again. Location?" We all froze. Preacher adjusted the frequency, tried to sharpen the signal. "We're north of Bastogne, along Route 16. Ambushed. Coordinates." That's when the line went dead. Wilson slammed his fist on the steel. God damn it, they cut us off again. Maybe the Germans were jamming us. Maybe command didn't care enough to keep the line open. I'd heard the whispers before. Send the colored units into the thick of it. If they don't come back, nobody important gets hurt. They'd never say it to your face, but you could feel it in the orders. Another shell screamed overhead, detonating behind us. The shockwave lifted the Sherman off its tracks for a second. My teeth rattled. Snow and mud rained down. I grabbed the handset from Preacher, pressed the button hard enough to crack it. To whoever's listening, we're not ghosts, we're not expendable, we're here, and we're fighting. God help us, we're fighting. I knew it was pointless, but I couldn't let the silence win. Then came the crackle of boots on snow, shapes moving in the fog, not trucks, not Americans, dozens of them. Shadows with helmets, rifles glinting, Germans advancing, closing the noose. Hold fire until they're close, I whispered. Make every bullet count. Marcus's hands shook on the trigger grips. He was scared, but so was I. Fear wasn't weakness, it was proof you were still alive. The first German broke through the mist barely 30 yards out. I gave the order. The Sherman roared, spitting fire. The round tore into the tree line, shredding men and wood alike. Wilson's .50 cal thundered from the turret, brass casings raining down around us. The fog lit up with muzzle flashes, screams, shouts in German, bullets pinged off our hull, clanging like a bell tolling for the dead. Through it all, I kept thinking of the trucks, their empty cargo beds, their vanished crews, men we were supposed to protect, swallowed by fog and fire. Had they run? Had they been dragged away, or had the earth itself decided to claim them? We'd never know. But I swore one thing then and there. If history was going to forget them, I wouldn't. If command wanted to bury our story under paperwork and excuses, I'd etch it in steel and blood in every scar on my soul. We weren't just fighting for survival anymore. We were fighting to be remembered. The Germans pressed harder. Their shouts carried through the fog, guttural and fierce, bullets striking our hull in relentless rhythm. Marcus fired another shell, the recoil jarring through the Sherman, and the tree line lit up with fire and smoke. Men screamed out there in the white void, their bodies swallowed before we could even register the damage we'd done. Wilson kept the .50 cal roaring, tracers slicing through the mist, each burst pushing him closer to exhaustion. His voice cracked as he yelled down through the turret, "Sarge, they just keep coming!" I steadied my breath, tried to keep my voice calm. "Then we keep firing." Calm wasn't how I felt. My guts were twisted. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break free of my chest. But leaders don't get to panic, not in front of men already teetering on the edge. Especially not a black sergeant in 1944. If I cracked, they'd say, "See? They can't handle the pressure." It wasn't just my life at stake. It was every man who looked like me fighting for the right to prove we belonged. Preacher tried the radio again, voice raw with desperation. "Command, do you hear me? This is Panther 3. We're in the kill zone. Convoy destroyed. We're outnumbered. We need—" The line burst with static, then silence. The enemy pushed closer. Shadows emerged through the fog, helmeted shapes with rifles raised, bayonets glinting in the pale light. They weren't afraid of us. They knew we were alone. "Load heat!" I barked, and Marcus slammed around into the chamber. The cannon thundered, sending a shell into the approaching line. Dirt and snow erupted, bodies tumbling. For a second, just a second, the Germans hesitated. That hesitation was all we had. "Forward!" I ordered. Wilson dropped into the turret, slammed the hatch shut, and Marcus gritted his teeth as we lurched ahead. The Sherman growled, treads chewing snow and mud, engine straining as I forced it toward the wreckage of our convoy. What we found there still haunts me. The trucks were hollow shells, cargo stripped, drivers executed at the wheel. But it wasn't just that. Some of the bodies had been dragged into the tree line, half hidden beneath branches, stripped of boots and gear. Others were simply gone. No blood trails, no prints in the snow, just vanished. Wilson muttered a prayer, voice trembling. "God, it's like the earth swallowed them whole." I didn't answer. I couldn't, because part of me believed him. A mortar landed nearby, jolting us back to reality. We were still in the fight, still trapped in that valley of white death. I forced my mind back to the living, back to survival. "Keep moving," I shouted. "Push through." The tank plowed forward, each yard earned in fire and fury. Marcus fired again and again, the cannon's thunder rolling through my bones. Wilson spotted a machine gun nest ahead, its tracers tearing across the snow, and cut it down in a rain of .50 cal fire. But still they came. Still the fog hid more than it revealed. For every nest we silenced, another opened. For every shadow we drove back, two more appeared. Inside the tank, the air was thick with smoke, sweat, and fear. My men looked at me like I had the answers. Truth was, I didn't. All I had was stubbornness. The refusal to let history write us off as expendable. And so I screamed over the chaos, my voice raw and ragged. They think we're alone out here. They think no one will remember us. Prove them wrong, make every round count. We weren't just fighting Germans anymore. We were fighting the silence. We were fighting the weight of being forgotten. We broke through the first wave, the Sherman grinding forward, treads crushing snow and ice. But every yard cost us. The fog wasn't lifting, it was closing in, curling tighter, muffling sound and sight until the world felt small as the tank's steel walls. Wilson was running low on belts for the .50 cal. "One more box after this, Sarge," he shouted, voice raw. "We're burning through fast." "Make 'em count," I told him, though inside I knew we couldn't shoot our way out forever. Preacher's radio hissed with nothing but static. He sat hunched over it, helmet tipped low, whispering half prayers under his breath. That's how he fought, by trying to bargain with God in the middle of hell. Marcus reloaded the main gun, sweat streaking his grime-caked face despite the cold. "How long we supposed to hold out, Sarge?" I didn't answer, because the truth was simple, until we couldn't anymore. The fog shifted suddenly, and in that brief, merciful clearing I saw them. More trucks, the rest of our convoy, but not how we'd left them. They were lined up along the tree line, tilted at odd angles, their canvas ripped open. Cargo scattered, no drivers in sight. It looked staged, like someone wanted us to see it. Wilson cursed, voice shaking. "Where the hell are the men?" Before I could answer, movement flickered among the trucks, shapes darting between the wrecks. For a split second, I thought maybe it was our guys, survivors. But then came the sound, German commands, sharp and clipped. Soldiers spilling out from behind the trucks like ants from a nest. "Target's front," I shouted. Marcus fired, the cannon blast swallowing the fog in fire and steel. One truck disintegrated, the explosion tearing bodies apart. Wilson stitched the rest with the .50 cal, snow spraying in violent arcs. But for every one we cut down, two more emerged. Machine guns barked from the woods, tracers tearing across the road. Bullets rattled against our armor, pinging and whining, each one a reminder that luck has limits. Inside the tank, the world was chaos. Sweat, gunpowder, fear. My men looked at me like I had the answers. And I thought about every insult, every look I'd swallowed since I joined up. "You're not fit to lead. You're not fit to fight. You're not even fit to wear the uniform." Those words had been knives then, but right now they were fuel. "Listen to me," I shouted over the roar. "Nobody's writing us off. Not today. We hold, we fight, we make them remember who the hell we are." Wilson let out a hoarse cheer, half courage, half desperation. He laid into the .50 again, and Marcus worked the cannon like a man possessed. Preacher muttered louder, radio forgotten, his prayers now a battle cry of their own. We were a storm inside a fog that wanted to bury us. But storms don't last forever. The ammo dwindled. The engine groaned. The Germans closed in, their fire growing heavier, more confident. And still no word from command. No backup. Just the weight of silence pressing harder than the fog itself. I looked at my men, Wilson, Marcus, Preacher, and I swore on everything I had left that I wouldn't let this be the end of us. But the truth clawed at the back of my skull. Maybe the convoy didn't vanish. Maybe it was erased, sacrificed, forgotten by the brass before the first wheel even turned, and now maybe they wanted us gone the same way. The Germans pressed closer, their rifles flashing in bursts of fire through the fog. The clang of bullets on steel shook the tank like a drum. The fog glowed faint orange from the muzzle blasts, each one a strobe light glimpse of death. Wilson was down to his last belt. He spat into the empty ammo can, face twisted with rage. "This is it, Sarge. After this, I'm throwing rocks." "Then throw 'em straight," I shot back, forcing a grin. Sometimes a leader's job is to lie with his teeth to keep the fear from boiling over. Inside, my hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the thought that this was where we'd be written off. Marcus slammed the last shell into the breech. "One more shot," he muttered like a gambler placing his final chip. He fired, and the cannon roared, blasting another truck apart. Flames licked through the fog, black smoke curling upward like a funeral banner. Preacher looked up from the useless radio. "Sarge," he said quietly, "if they don't hear us, if they never meant to—" I cut him off. "Don't say it, not here, not now." But I knew what he was thinking. Maybe we weren't forgotten. Maybe we were erased on purpose. The fog thickened, muffling everything. For a moment the firefight became disjointed. Bursts of gunfire, then silence, then another burst. The kind of silence that made you wonder if you'd gone deaf. Wilson's voice broke it. Movement, right side. Figures emerged from the fog, crouched low, rifles raised. Too close, too fast. I fired my carbine out the hatch, every shot echoing inside my skull. Marcus dropped one with the coaxial gun. Wilson cut down two more, brass casings raining like golden tears. Still they came. And in that chaos, I saw something strange. One of the Germans wasn't aiming at us. He was waving his arms, shouting, pointing behind him. At first I thought it was a trick, then I saw it, the shape looming behind them. Not a tank, not infantry, another truck, our truck. Canvas ripped wide open, cargo spilled across the road. Not ammo, not supplies, something else, wooden crates stenciled in English, our markings. Wilson squinted. What the hell, that's our gear. Marcus cursed. They're using our own damn convoy as bait. It hit me like ice in the chest. The missing convoy hadn't vanished. It had been ambushed, stripped, and turned into a lure. We weren't here to confirm anything. We were here to die so command could write it off as lost in the fog. Bait. That's all we were. Preacher's voice cracked as he realized it too. They knew, Sarge. Somebody sent us down this road knowing what we'd find. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. The racism I'd felt in whispers, in side glances, in half words. Suddenly it all pressed in on me. Were we chosen for this because we were expendable? Because a black sergeant and his crew could vanish easier than others? The rage burned hotter than fear. No, I growled. We're not dying to cover somebody else's lies. We make them remember us. We make it cost them more than they can pay. Wilson barked a laugh, wild and sharp. Now that's a plan I can get behind. Marcus chambered another round. Let's give 'em hell, Sarge. And we did. The fog turned red and orange, lit by fire and fury. Every trigger pull was a statement. Every shell a refusal to vanish quietly. And still the thought gnawed at me. What if command never planned to bring us home? The fog swallowed the world again, but the truth was already out in the open. That wrecked truck with our crates scattered across the road told the story plain as day. We hadn't been sent here to discover anything. We'd been sent here to disappear. Marcus jammed another shell into the breach, hands slick with sweat and grime. Sarge, this road's a grave. Ours, theirs, doesn't matter. Ain't no way out. I gritted my teeth, pulling the carbine tighter into my shoulder. Then we carve a way out. Wilson gave me a sharp look. With what? You seen our ammo count? One more rush and they'll bury us right here. Preacher was shaking his head, muttering a prayer half under his breath. Lord, if this is where we go down, and let it mean something. But I wasn't ready to let it end that way. Maybe it was stubborn pride. Maybe it was the thought of my mama back in Georgia, who'd already had to swallow too many headlines about boys like me who never returned. Boys whose deaths barely got a line in the paper because their skin was the wrong color. Not me. Not today. I leaned down toward Preacher, my voice hard. Radio again. Try every damn frequency. Somebody out there has to hear us. He hesitated, eyes searching mine. Sarge, even if they do, what if they don't come? They'll come, I said, though I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince. Him or me. The gunfire died down for a moment, replaced by distant shouts in German. Orders being barked, boots thudding on mud. They weren't pulling back. They were closing in, tightening the noose. Wilson crouched lower, his machine gun barrel glowing faintly from the heat. Feels like they're herding us, Sarge, just like cattle. The word stung more than he knew. Herded. Pushed into a corner. That was a familiar feeling. Off the battlefield, too. I'd lived my whole damn life in corners carved by other people's hands. But this corner was different. This one we could fight back from. Through the shifting fog, I saw movement. Dark shapes flanking us, rifles at the ready. Marcus swung the coaxial and cut them down, tracers tearing the mist. But more kept coming, always more. Then Preacher's radio crackled, just once. A faint burst of static, like the sound of hope scratching at the door. He froze, eyes wide, then twisted the dial with frantic precision. Say again? A voice came through, thin and broken by static. Identify yourself. Every head inside the tank snapped toward the handset. This is Panther 3, Preacher bellowed, louder than I'd ever heard him. We are under heavy fire. Ambushed on Route 17. Request immediate support. Coordinates... The line hissed, cracked, almost died. Then, mercifully, it returned. Panther 3, this is Guardian Actual. Hold your ground. Reinforcements en route. ETA 20 minutes. The words were salvation and a death sentence all at once. Marcus slammed the breech shut with another round. 20 minutes, we ain't got 20 minutes. Wilson barked a laugh that sounded half crazy. Then we fight like hell for 19. Something inside me hardened. That order that brought us here, the one that should have never been given, wasn't going to be the last word. We'd decide how this story ended, not them. I met each of their eyes in turn. Wilson's wild grin, Marcus's clenched jaw, Preacher's trembling hands still clutching the handset, and I felt it. The unspoken bond. We weren't just men abandoned by command, we were brothers holding the line together. I chambered the last of my magazines and spoke steady, loud enough for them all to hear. They wanted us forgotten. Let's make damn sure they remember us. The fog shuddered with another mortar blast, closer this time. Dirt rained through the hatch. The noose was tightening, and all we could do was fight inside it, teeth bared, until the cavalry came, or until we fell. The next 20 minutes stretched out like an eternity, every second carved in fire and fear. The Germans pressed harder, closing in through the fog with shouts and gunfire. Mortars churned the earth, spraying mud and shrapnel across our hull. Each blast rattled my bones. Each crack of a rifle meant another chance we wouldn't see the dawn. Wilson's machine gun spat fire until the barrel smoked and hissed. He laughed through gritted teeth, sweat streaking down his face. Come on, you bastards. If you want us, you'll choke on every inch. Marcus was down to his last shells. Each time he rammed one home, it was like he was betting his soul. His jaw clenched tighter, lips moving in silent curses. And Preacher, he never let go of that handset. Even as bullets pinged off the armor, even as a mortar shell split a tree in half barely 10 yards away, he kept the radio pressed to his ear, whispering coordinates, whispering prayers. The Germans surged, figures breaking through the mist. For a heartbeat, I swore I saw death itself in their eyes. Merciless, inevitable. And then above it all came the sound, a deep thundering roar that cut through the fog like the voice of God himself. Engines, rotors. The cavalry had come. A squadron of P-47 Thunderbolts ripped across the sky, their guns blazing, the air splitting with the scream of strafing runs. The fog lit up with tracers and explosions as the earth itself seemed to shatter under the onslaught. The Germans broke, their shouts turning from fury to panic. They scattered, diving for cover, too late to escape the storm raining down on them. One of the Thunderbolts swooped so low I could see the pilot's goggles flashing in the dim light. He waggled his wings, once, quick, like a promise. Then he climbed, vanishing back into the gray. Silence fell again, but not the deadly silence from before. This was different. This was the silence of survival. I looked around at my men, what was left of them. Wilson's hands trembled as he reloaded. Marcus slumped back against the turret wall, chest heaving, Preacher still clutching the radio like it was his lifeline. We were alive. Barely, but alive. Guardian Actual, the voice crackled through the handset. Area clear, reinforcements inbound, hold tight. Hold tight. 2 words that sounded so simple, but we knew the truth. We hadn't just held tight. We had held together. When the relief column arrived hours later, they found us battered, bloody, and hollow-eyed. The convoy we were supposed to protect was gone, swallowed by that cursed road, by the betrayal that had sent us there in the first place. Command would call it a miscommunication, maybe even a tragic loss, another line in another report. But for us, it was the scar that never healed, because the truth wasn't just that the Germans had ambushed us. The truth was that somebody in a clean uniform miles away had written us off before we even set foot on that road, and yet we didn't let them write the ending. I carry that day with me even now. Not the medals. They never handed us any worth remembering. Not the praise. There wasn't much of that either. What I carry is the bond of those men in that fog. The memory of how we fought when no one else believed we were worth saving. That's the lesson I leave you with tonight. Sometimes the world will try to erase you. Sometimes it'll hand you a radio that betrays you, or an order meant to bury you. But you hold the line anyway. You keep fighting. You don't give up on the ones beside you. Because one day someone will remember. Someone will tell your story, and in that you live on. I'm Staff Sergeant Henry Carter, 761st Tank Battalion. That's my truth. That's my war. And if this story spoke to you, if it made you feel what we felt, then I ask you to carry it forward. Subscribe to this channel, share it, and leave your thoughts below. Every comment, every like, every new subscriber helps keep these stories alive. The world tried to silence us once. Don't let it succeed a second time.